At a Senate hearing yesterday, Acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe acknowledged the massive failure of the Secret Service, which enabled the recent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. But he defended his agency's refusal to fire any of the agents involved in the planning and response to the assassination attempt of the former president, claiming he did not want to, quote, rush to judgment. Well, drawing harsh words from multiple senators, Acting Director Rowe also disclosed discoveries regarding possible social media accounts that belong to the shooter. The question is, are we getting closer to answers or just more questions? Joining me now by phone to discuss this, as well as the latest on the intensifying conflict in the Middle East, is Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. He serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Senate Judiciary Committee, where he's the ranking member. Senator Graham, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you, Johnny, very much.
Well, give me first your take on yesterday's hearing with the acting director of the Secret Service. New revelations? Did you get questions answered, or did it just raise more questions?
Well, I mean, how many more questions do you need to ask before somebody needs to get fired? I mean, the system failed. It's a massive system failure. Individual members of the Secret Service, the President's Protective Detail, rushed to his aid as quick as they could, but everything failed. How can you get within 130 yards of the President and get 8 rounds off from a rooftop unsecured, a 20-year-old guy without any military training? So if people are not fired, it will happen again. The only deterrence that really matters in these things is for people to lose their job. If you're in the military and you did this, you'd probably be court-martialed. So I'm looking for some decisive action. But having said that, I'd like to have more Secret Service agents, not less. They've reduced their force by about 300 and something in the last few years. And clearly, they need more people with better training and change the system. But one thing that struck me is that this would-be assassin had social media accounts connected to overseas entities, and we can't get into them. And that, to me, is a problem for our nation.
What role did politics play in this, in the decision for security, the additional requests that were made for former President Trump? Are you convinced that this was just a system failure, or was it a failure because politics were injected into it?
I don't know if there were resources denied. I have no evidence to suggest that there was a political decision to not resource President Trump because of his politics. But, you know, how smart do you have to be to understand that this failed at every level? I mean, isn't it stunning? Tony, I still can't quite absorb what happened here. A 20-year-old guy with no military training, apparently, flew a drone that was undetected before the, before the event. People saw him up on the roof, and he got 8 shots off. I mean, it's stunning that the level of the system failure. And if people don't lose their job over this, what would get you fired in the Secret Service?
Well, I think you're going to have definitive action because already, the conspiracy theories are churning. And I think we've got to get answers quickly because that only further divides this country and makes the upcoming election even more volatile.
I couldn't agree with you more. But the point I do want to reinforce here is that this guy was on social media, and I don't know who he was talking to, but they're encrypted apps, and they apparently have some connection overseas. Again, I don't think anybody would hire this guy. That'd be just hard to believe. But having said that, what if you had a pedophile ring at your broke and you get warrants for, their social media devices and you can't get into them? I mean, this is a problem for terrorism and crime, and sort of a wake-up call. I hope we can find a way to fix it. You know what they've done with his phones? They've given them to the Israelis, hoping they can break the encryption.
Well, that's a great transition to my next topic that I want to discuss with you, Senator Graham, and that is Israel. Iran has vowed a response to the killing of a Hamas leader in Tehran. We also have the elimination of a Hezbollah leader in Lebanon. Are we on the verge of a much wider conflict in the region?
If we don't change our policy, yes. And here's what Israel did. They killed a man in Lebanon who had a $5 million bounty on his head because he was involved in the Beirut bombing back in the 80s, killing Marines. So he's been a known terrorist for decades. $5 million bounty on his head by the United States, a high-up Hezbollah guy, and they killed him in Lebanon. Well, what did we do with bin Laden? We took him out in Pakistan. Israel has a policy. We will hunt you down. No matter what you do, no matter how long it takes, we're coming after you if you try to kill Israelis. And yesterday, what happened? You had a Hamas leader, the political leader of Hamas, been involved with Hamas in the leadership since 2017. You'll never convince me he didn't have anything to do with October the 7th. He was taken out in Iran, where he was paying homage to the new Iranian president, who was being sworn in their parliament, their version of parliament. And during the swearing in, they were chanting death to Israel, death to America. So he was up in Tehran paying homage, and I don't know if Israel took him out. Something happened to him. Let's just say this. I put a bill in today that says if Hezbollah attacks Israel, it should be considered an attack by Iran against Israel. I'm tired to play this charade. When Hezbollah attacks Israel, Hamas attacks Israel, that's Iran attacking Israel. So I would urge Israel to go after Iran if Hezbollah responds here, take down their oil refineries. I would urge the American government to get behind Israel, defend themselves against Iran. That's what I would urge.
Senator, I want to play a clip from last week's speech by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. You were in the chamber. I was sitting not far back from where you were. Play clip number 2, please.
And one more thing. When Israel acts to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons that could destroy Israel and threaten every American city, every city that you come from, we're not only protecting ourselves, we're protecting you.
Senator, he didn't say if, he said when.
Okay, so I did 2 things today. I'm trying to avoid having the war escalate, and there's only one way to achieve that goal. If you let Iran know that they will be responsible for the actions of Hezbollah if they attack Israel, that you would go after Iranian oil refineries, not just targets in Lebanon, I think they would calm Hezbollah down if they know they're on the target list. As to their nuclear program, I introduced legislation today authorizing the use of military force by the United States if the president determines that Iran is about to break out regarding their nuclear weapon ambitions. Now, why did I do that today? I read the Director of National Intelligence report that's required every 6 months. It was a year late, detailing the status of the Iranian nuclear program regarding enrichment of uranium and plutonium and the development of a delivery system. I was so unnerved by what I saw, I introduced legislation authorizing the use of military force by the United States to stop an Iranian breakout toward a nuclear weapon. Bibi is right. Anything they do to deny Iran a nuclear weapon makes us safer, but we can't outsource our own security to Israel. So I did that today, Tony, because I've never been more worried about the Ayatollah sprinting toward a bomb than I am right now.
When you look back to April, when there was a direct attack by Iran on Israel, we've kind of crossed that threshold where it's not just proxies anymore. So if they have a nuclear weapon, once they have it, it would seem that they're much more aggressive in their posture, not just toward Israel, but potentially other countries in the region.
Well, look at North Korea. They have nuclear capability, and it's sort of an insurance policy. Now, the difference, I think, between North Korea and China and Iran is they're religious Nazis. Their goal is to spread their version of Shia Islam throughout the Mideast, drive us out of the region, and destroy the state of Israel because they're commanded to do so by God. Their religion requires them to kill the Jews and come after us. If they get a nuclear weapon, it'd be like the Nazis having a nuclear weapon. They will use it. Israel cannot afford to get this wrong. And I am telling everybody in the Senate and the House, you need to go read this report about the status of Iran's nuclear program. Israel will not allow this without one hell of a fight. If the Ayatollah ever got a nuclear weapon, he would use it because he's a religious fanatic and a religious Nazi.
Right.
So we live in very dangerous times, and the Arabs would respond by getting their own nuclear weapon. Then you're on the road to Armageddon. So we need to make sure that we stand with Israel, and we also protect ourselves. Not only was Bibi right saying that going after their nuclear program in Iran would make us safer, we should put it on our list of things
Right.
to do as well.
Senator Lindsey Graham, out of time, but it's always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today.
Thank you. Pray for our friends in Israel. God bless.
We are.